Welcome to a deep dive into the life and times of King David.
Oh,
We're looking at chapters from 2 Samuel.
okay.
It gives us a glimpse into an important time in biblical history.
Yeah,
We'll trace David's journey from exile to king.
right.
We'll see the challenges he faced, how complex his character was.
Sounds good.
We'll do that through stories and events in the book.
Yeah, it's interesting. We don't see David's whole life in 2 Samuel.
Right.
It's like snapshots of key moments.
Yeah, we're jumping right into the action after King Saul dies.
Okay.
The book starts with an Amalekite messenger.
Uh-huh.
He goes to Ziklag, where David is,
Okay.
and he tells him Saul is dead.
Oh, wow.
But there are two different versions of how Saul died.
Really?
First, the Amalekite says he killed Saul.
Okay.
He says Saul asked him to because he was hurt and didn't want to be captured.
Huh.
But if you remember 1 Samuel,
Yeah.
it says Saul fell on his own sword.
That's different.
Yeah, so two very different stories. What do you
Yeah.
think of that?
Well, it makes you think about how history is written down.
Uh-huh.
Was the Amalekite trying to get on David's good side?
Yeah,
Or were there just different people who saw it differently?
good point. And David doesn't believe the Amalekite story at all.
Really?
He has him killed for touching the Lord's anointed.
Wow. That's harsh.
It is,
Yeah.
but it shows he respects the king even in death.
Okay.
It's like a message to anyone who might want to challenge him.
I see, like it's a power move.
Yeah, but he also grieves over Saul and Jonathan.
Right.
He tears his clothes.
Uh-huh.
He mourns with his men.
Yeah.
He even writes the Song of the Bow.
I remember that.
It's about how much he lost, especially Jonathan.
Yeah. So how do we see this grief and this power move together?
Well, maybe it was both real grief and being smart.
Okay.
The lament sounds real, but David was also a clever leader.
Sure.
He knew people were watching.
Right.
By showing his sadness, he could get sympathy
Yeah.
and look like a good replacement for Saul. So he's mourning, but also getting ready for what's next.
Yeah. What happens next?
He asks the Lord where to go,
Okay.
and he goes to Hebron and is made king of Judah.
So that's a big change.
Yeah, because now there's a divided kingdom.
Oh, right.
Saul's son Ishbosheth is still alive,
Uh-huh.
and he's king of the other tribes of Israel.
Okay.
So this will be a challenge for David,
Definitely.
and it will show us more about him. Then we meet Abner.
Who's that?
He was Saul's general.
Okay.
He helps Ishbosheth be king.
Got it. What's he like with David?
It's complicated.
Really?
You have these two strong guys both wanting control.
Yeah.
Abner was loyal to Saul,
Uh-huh.
so he sees David as dangerous.
Okay.
They become rivals.
Interesting. And it's not just political, is it?
No, there's also this blood feud thing.
Oh, right.
It was how things worked back then.
Yeah.
If someone in your family was killed,
Mhm.
someone else had to take revenge.
I see.
It could go on for generations.
Wow.
Lots of fighting and killing.
Makes sense.
So when Abner kills Joab's brother, Asahel,
Oh,
it sets off a chain of events.
yeah.
And Joab kills Abner to get revenge.
It's a brutal act.
It is.
Yeah.
But it shows how these feuds were really personal.
Right.
Even though Abner wanted peace with David,
Uh-huh.
Joab had to avenge his brother.
Makes sense. So what does David do?
Well, he says publicly that Joab was wrong.
Ah,
And he even writes a lament for Abner.
interesting. Why do you think he did that?
Maybe he was really mad at Joab,
Yeah.
especially because Abner wanted peace.
True.
But he was also a smart politician.
Uh-huh.
By saying Joab was wrong, he made himself look good.
Yeah, like he's a fair leader.
Exactly. He's trying to control Joab, but also look good to the people.
That's tricky.
It is, and it shows how good David was at politics.
Right. He knew how to look good.
Exactly. And that was important to stay in power.
Yeah, but even with Abner gone, it's not over.
No. Then Ishbosheth is murdered.
What?
Two of his own captains kill him.
Wow, and they bring his head to David.
Yeah, can you believe that?
That's bold.
It is, but it meant David could finally be king.
Makes sense. And what does David do?
He condemns the murderers.
So he's showing he's a just king.
Yeah, he doesn't like treachery.
Got it. So he
Yeah.
finally gets to be king of all Israel.
Yes, and his first big move is capturing Jerusalem.
Wow, from the Jebusites.
That's right. It's a huge win for him.
Definitely not just militarily or...
Right, by making Jerusalem his capital.
Yeah.
He shows he's different from the old kings.
It's a new era for Israel,
Exactly, and he fortifies the city.
making it strong.
Right, and then he wins all these battles.
Against who?
The Philistines,
Uh-huh.
the Moabites,
Okay.
the Syrians,
Yeah.
and the Edomites.
So he's expanding his kingdom.
Yeah, he's becoming really powerful.
The book mentions specific battles like Baal Perazim.
Right.
It means The Lord who breaks out.
Interesting. So it shows God was on David's side.
That's how they saw it.
Yeah, and then there's Rabbah, the Ammonite capital.
Okay.
That was a long, hard siege.
Mm-hmm.
It shows David was a great military leader.
Yeah. But even with all this success,
Right.
we see some problems starting.
Yeah, stay tuned for part 2.
Okay.
We'll see how David's actions have consequences.
Right.
And how his family and kingdom start falling apart.
Sounds intense.
It is. When we left off, David was facing some serious consequences.
Yeah, his family was really starting to fall apart.
It's a big turning point in the story.
Right. We've seen him become powerful and win battles,
Mm.
but now his personal life is a mess.
Yeah, and it starts with a terrible event.
What's that?
Tamar is raped by her half-brother Amnon.
Oh, that's awful.
It's a really disturbing story.
It shows how much jealousy and violence there was even in David's family.
And the book doesn't hide how bad it was.
Right.
It's important to see how vulnerable women were back then.
Yeah, and how some people abuse their power.
It's so sad, and then it leads to even more violence.
Oh, see,
Tamar's brother Absalom wants revenge.
makes sense.
He plans it out and eventually kills Amnon.
Oh, wow. So another brother killing a brother.
Right, it's this cycle of violence that just keeps going.
Yeah, one bad thing leads to another.
David is crushed by all of this.
I bet.
He's sad about Amnon, but also furious with Absalom.
So what does he do?
He doesn't really punish Absalom.
Really?
Yeah, he lets him go into exile.
Some people say that shows David was weak.
I can see that.
Like he couldn't face what his son had done.
Right.
Others say it shows he loved Absalom too much.
Yeah.
Like he couldn't bring himself to punish him more.
It's tough to say for sure.
It is, and it creates this tension that just builds up.
Until Absalom comes back.
He does.
Yeah, but not to say he's sorry.
Oh, no.
He wants to be king instead of David.
So he's rebelling against his own father.
Exactly. It's the ultimate betrayal.
And he's good at it, too.
Right. He uses people's discontent.
Uh-huh.
He makes himself look good.
Yeah.
And he gets a lot of people on his side.
Wow. So he's a real threat to David.
He is. David has to run away from Jerusalem.
Really. He has to leave everything behind.
Yeah, his palace, his power, even the Ark of the Covenant.
That's incredible.
It is the king who had won so many battles
Right.
is now running away from his own son.
It makes you think about power,
Uh-huh.
how it can change so quickly.
Yeah, and how even strong kingdoms can be fragile.
Exactly. But there's still some people who stay loyal to David.
Like who?
Ittai the Gittite.
Oh.
He was a soldier from another country,
Oh,
but he chose to stay with David.
wow. And there's Hushai the Archite.
What did he do?
He went into Absalom's court to spy for David.
Oh, he risked his life.
He did. They were truly loyal.
Not just because they had to be,
Right.
but because they believed in David.
Yeah, it reminds us that even when things are bad,
Uh-huh.
there are good people who do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And their loyalty is really important.
Oh.
Especially when one of David's advisors, Ahithophel, decides to join Absalom.
Oh, wow. That's a big blow.
It is. Why do you think he did that?
Well, he was known for being smart about politics, but he also liked to be on the winning side.
Right.
So maybe he thought Absalom would win.
Makes sense. It shows that power can corrupt people.
Yeah, even those you trust.
So David is in a bad spot,
He is.
but he doesn't give up.
What does he do?
He prays, he talks to people he trusts,
Uh-huh.
and he starts planning.
That's good.
And this is where Hushai is so important.
Okay.
He stops Ahithophel's plan.
Really?
Yeah, he tricks Absalom into waiting to attack.
Wow.
That gives David time to get ready.
So smart.
It shows how important it is to be clever.
Especially in war.
Right, Hushai changed everything.
So what happens next?
The final battle,
Where is it?
the forest of Ephraim.
David's army against Absalom's.
Yeah, it's a brutal fight.
Lots of people die.
The book really makes you feel the chaos.
Yeah, and the forest itself becomes important.
How so?
It's tangled and dangerous,
Oh,
like the whole conflict.
Right, where brother fights brother.
Yeah, and you don't know who to trust.
And then there's Absalom.
What happens to him?
He's running away, and his hair gets caught in a tree,
What?
a big oak tree.
So he's stuck.
Yeah, hanging there.
Can't believe it.
It's like fate.
Uh-huh.
The son who wanted to be king
Right.
is brought down by a tree.
Wow, what does David do?
Well, remember, he told his men not to kill Absalom.
Yeah, he still loved him.
Right, but one of the soldiers tells Joab where Absalom is.
Okay.
And Joab kills Absalom himself.
Oh, wow.
He was loyal to David.
Right.
And maybe he thought it was the only way to end the rebellion? But it will cause problems later.
How?
It creates distance between David and Joab.
I see.
And when David finds out Absalom is dead,
Uh-huh.
he completely loses it.
Really?
He cries out, "Oh, my son Absalom, my son Absalom."
Whoa.
Would God I had died for thee, O Absalom, my son, my son.
That's heartbreaking.
It just goes beyond politics.
Yeah.
It's just a father losing his son.
Even in victory, there can be sadness.
Exactly. And Joab knows this is dangerous.
He does.
He tells David to snap out of it. Yeah, he reminds him that he's the king
Right.
and that he needs to lead his people.
So it's harsh, but maybe necessary?
It is.
Yeah.
David needs to get back in control.
So what happens?
He goes back to Jerusalem,
Okay.
but things are still a mess.
Yeah.
The kingdom is divided, and he has to make peace with those who supported Absalom.
It won't be easy.
It isn't. And then there's a famine.
Oh, no.
They say it's because of something Saul did.
What was that?
He killed the Gibeonites.
Okay.
Now they want revenge.
What do they want?
7 of Saul's descendants to be killed.
Wow.
It's a tough choice for David.
I bet.
He doesn't want to punish innocent people,
Right.
but he also needs to stop the famine.
It shows how complicated justice can be.
Yeah. And how the past can come back to haunt you.
Definitely.
There's this powerful scene with Rizpah,
Oh.
the mother of 2 of the men who were executed.
Oh, wow.
She stays with their bodies.
Really?
Yeah, she protects them until they can be buried.
That's so sad.
It shows how strong a mother's love can be.
Yeah, and it reminds us that political decisions have real consequences.
Then David does something to try and heal things.
What's that?
He gets the bones of Saul and Jonathan.
Okay.
They had been left in Philistine territory.
Uh-huh.
David gives them a proper burial.
That's nice of him.
It shows he wants to move on from the past.
Yeah.
But David's story isn't over yet.
Really? What else happens?
There's one more important episode.
Okay.
It's about pride, power, and God's judgment.
Sound intense.
It's the census and the plague. Stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll see how this event shapes David's legacy
Right.
and what it tells us about faith and leadership. Welcome back to our deep dive into King David's life.
Yeah, we're at a turning point.
This episode makes you think about power and pride.
And God's judgment.
It's the census and the plague.
That's a tough story.
It is. David makes a decision that really hurts his people.
It does. It makes you think about human nature.
All right, even people who are close to God.
Yeah, so remind me what happened with the census.
Okay.
Why was it such a big deal?
Well, David decides to count all the soldiers in Israel and Judah.
On the surface, it seems practical.
Right, like he's figuring out how strong his army is.
Yeah, but back then it was seen as prideful.
Oh, okay.
Like he was relying on his army instead of God.
I see. So he's putting his trust in the wrong place.
Exactly. In ancient Israel, that was a big no-no.
So God gets angry.
Right, because a king's power came from his army.
Okay.
So by counting his soldiers,
Uh-huh.
David was saying he was powerful on his own.
Like he didn't need God?
Exactly, and that was a problem.
So what does God do?
He sends a plague.
Oh, wow.
Thousands of people die.
That's terrible.
It shows that even kings have to answer to God.
Yeah, and that pride can be dangerous.
It's like David, who had won all these battles, is now helpless.
And it's his fault. His people are suffering.
But we also see David's good side here.
What do you mean?
He realizes he messed up. He asks God for forgiveness.
He takes responsibility.
Exactly. He doesn't blame anyone else.
Yeah.
He says, I have sinned and done wrong.
Uh-huh.
But these sheep, what have they done?
Let your hand be against me and my family.
Powerful stuff.
He's willing to suffer to protect his people.
Yeah, it shows true leadership.
And it gives us hope.
How so?
Even when we make big mistakes,
Yeah.
we can still turn to God.
And ask for forgiveness.
Exactly. So as we finish our deep dive,
Right.
what are the big lessons from David's life?
Well, for me, it shows that even heroes aren't perfect.
Sure.
David was brave and loved God.
Yeah.
But he also made bad choices.
Because of pride and lust?
Exactly. So it reminds us that everyone makes mistakes.
Even people who are close to God.
It's not about being perfect.
Right.
It's about how we react to our mistakes.
Do we admit we were wrong?
Do we try to be better?
It's a message for everyone.
It is, no matter who you are.
We can find hope in David's story.
Knowing that God forgives us.
Thank you for helping us explore 2 Samuel.
My pleasure.
It's been a really interesting journey.
It has.
And to our listener, we hope this deep dive into David's life has made you think.
About leadership and faith.
And the strength of the human spirit.
Until next time.
Keep exploring and keep searching for truth.